Hi, I'm Marty Levinson, and welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
I'm Marty Levinson, and you're watching Northtown News Magazine.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Come on, baby, don't you wanna go?
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine show. By the way, I'd also like you to introduce you to Anita Alvarez, one of my most favorite people in the whole wide world, because me and her are scissor happy, scissor friends, scissor pals.
Thank you, Marty. Avi Myers, Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine, a presentation of Sonny Hirsch and myself. Election season is in full swing, and we're already on our second round of interviews for the state's attorney's office. Just to keep you appraised, Donna Moore has been on the show. Kim Fox has been approached and haven't heard back so far. I wonder if that has anything to do with you, Scott the Slander Cizik, but I guess we'll find out. But it is a pleasure at this point. And I want to thank very much Sally Daly Hunt and Dan Kirk, who couldn't be with us today because he's busy trying a murder case. The state's attorney of Cook County, Anita Alvarez. How are you?
I'm great, Avi. Thanks for having me back.
First of all, thank you, and thank you very much for gracing our set. Always a pleasure to talk to you. And you've got 35,000 cases a year going through your office. So yeah, if anything you don't agree with, blame her for every single one. So in any event, you've been looking at trying to reform things from a larger picture.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We've got several new initiatives that I've announced within the last, 6 months. But one of the things I want to highlight, though, is that I started back in 2010 our diversion court, our deferred prosecution program. And that has been going so well that when I took over as state's attorney, there were only 8 alternative sentencing or prosecution, courts. Now we have our programs that existed. Now we have 30. Because I've been expanding, basically since I took over, expanding our diversion programs for the better because, I am a career prosecutor, so I've done this job a long time. I acknowledge that, unfortunately we see the violence and we see those criminals who are staying on that path of crime, but we also see those people who make one stupid mistake in their life and find themselves charged with a felony, 19 years old, 20 years old, no background. They want to go into the military. They want to go to college. We all know what the felony conviction can do to you. So with that in mind, we created our deferred prosecution program and started it as a pilot here in Cook County. We tried to change the law initially down in Springfield. It didn't pass. But once we got our program up and running, I'm proud to say we were able to change the law. So other counties have emulated our program. So, Lake County, DuPage County, all across the state. So that deferred prosecution program focuses on nonviolent offenders who are, arrested for the first time. And we give them the opportunity to go into a program. There's certain conditions. For example, if they don't have a high school education, they have to sign up for GED classes, that sort of thing. Once they complete all the requirements of the program within the year, then we dismiss the case, outright dismiss it. Not only do we dismiss it, they have the opportunity to expunge it from their record. And it's all for the better. That program, right now, as we sit here today, we have about 3,500 people in some kind of alternative prosecution program. 3,500 people is a lot.
It is an awful lot of people.
Right. And so, as I said...
Who otherwise would be occupying all sorts of interesting spots in prison at the taxpayer expense.
Exactly. So we saw, we were monitoring it, and we saw how well we've done with our deferred prosecution program. What I decided to do is to look at the drugs. And so in April, I announced my latest program, deferred prosecution program, and it's our drug deferred prosecution program, or DDPP as we're calling it. And this program we're very excited about, and we finessed it over the summer. and got it up and running in October. And the focus on this new program is not first-time offenders. We're focusing on those repeat offenders, those people who we see keep coming into the system on drug charges, keep coming, circling back in. You know, they pick up a case, they'll plead guilty, they'll spend 6 months in jail, then they're back in our courtroom in a couple of months. So the focus is on those offenders, repeat offenders, who really do have an addiction, who have a problem, and they're not getting the help that they need. So we're working with several social service providers to make sure that if we deferred these people out, that they are put into the program that they should be in. And we've it's a very I'm very proud of it because it's very well thought out. It took us about a year to develop this because we wanted to make sure, number one, we were targeting the right offenders, but also we wanted to make sure that we had the appropriate social service providers with us, and the fact that they're going to be able to get reimbursed and paid for what they do, because we all know that what the state of Illinois
Really?
we have a little problem, right?
I haven't been for any state contracts lately.
But many of our social service providers that we traditionally work with, their budgets have been cut. So we did our own research and found that they could be reimbursed through the Affordable Care Act and through Medicaid. So we're up and running now. So hopefully a year from now I could have numbers for you to show. We built in 3 levels of intervention because we're not naive enough to think that a person's going to be able to cure their addiction with one try. So we kind of built that into the program so that we are going to give people more and more chances when it comes to those drugs.
Now, are they going on methadones?
Well, they'll be screened and they'll be assessed through task, and then they'll connect them to the appropriate services. So everybody's different, So
Right.
That's how as I said, it's just up and running now for a couple of weeks, so it's too early to tell. But we're very positive, and we believe we're going to have some good results.
That sounds interesting. The fact of the matter is that one of the biggest problems somebody has when they're on drugs is it's bad enough that they have the addiction in the first place, but the amount that they have to steal.
Right.
Or prostitute for, or whatever else.
Exactly.
I don't want to say too much on here, but I did tell you that story about that one time I was in that den. Mm-hmm. And, boy, hearing like 15 different war stories from what I did that day.
Right.
Not to mention being offered all the goods and services I refused, but I could have had some very nice things very cheaply. It's amazing how people can really stuff things under. Well, anyway, getting back to this. But you know what? It's like, it's bad enough that they've got the addiction, but when they've got to go steal or do these other things,
Sure.
That makes it even worse.
They're committing other crimes to feed their habits. So we're hoping that this program will see some good results.
No, that definitely sounds very good. Now, you're along. One of the things you've really been into, of course, is human trafficking. Mm-hmm. Not the con side of it. And you were talking about. I noticed that there's some sort of new program or new court involved now with prostitution and human trafficking and all that.
Right. We opened up in April our prostitution/trafficking court. 2 years ago, I supported the defelonization of prostitution, and actually, Illinois was only one of.
Was it actually a felony?
Yes, and sometimes people didn't understand, but it was, and we were like one of 8 states in the entire nation that actually had felony prostitution. So I supported that to defelonize.
Boy, and with all the whores in government.
Once we did that, our focus is, so we created this new court, and we modeled it after a court that's been up and running in Manhattan, New York, for quite a while. And through the Center for Court Innovation, who helped us, we put this court together. It's on the misdemeanor side, so it's at 555 West Harrison, and the focus really is, again, trying to get these women services, because what we've learned through our efforts in human trafficking is that many of these women find themselves in this life because they themselves have been abused. They themselves have been abused over the years and know nothing else. So, society may say, oh, it's just prostitution, but, we look at it differently. And so we offer services when they come to the court. And try to get them, again, connected to the appropriate social service provider, because sometimes they have drug addictions as well, or maybe an alcohol addiction. There are different needs. So we're very excited. We've gotten more people coming through the court than we thought we were going to have. So that's actually a good thing. And it's been up and running. And just 2 weeks ago, I was invited to New York to present and moderate a panel on human trafficking through the Center for Court Innovation, and its focus was state court judges. There were 400 state court judges there, and I'm proud of the fact that what I developed through our human trafficking unit and how we, as local prosecutors, particularly here in Cook County, handle these types of cases. And I'm proud to say that we've become recognized nationally, and it's now called the Chicago approach as to how to handle these types of cases for us as local prosecutors. So it was a big honor to be there and to represent, Chicago, represent Cook County, and the fact that other states are looking to us to develop their own programs. Everybody wants to create, what we've created here through our human trafficking task force. So my assistants routinely go out and, train across the country. So I'm very proud of that, because I think, people look at that issue and, number one, well, a lot of times they don't want to talk about it, right? Yeah. And then when they do talk about it, they think it's only happening in another country, right? It's only happening in this country or that country, not here. It is happening here. It's happening here.
I could listen, if you're interested, I can find you stuff within a few blocks. Mm-hmm. And that's not a joke. I mean, right along, if you go to like Devon Avenue, which is 4 blocks from here, and I'm a walker, so. But it's interesting. You were talking before about prostitutes, that have drug problems. The majority of people I've seen on the street, I've got to be stoned, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. To be honest. But no, they're on the street. As a matter of fact, through Tom Dart's campaign against something, I checked out another site, and you can actually do a geographic search. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't believe how much stuff is within a few blocks of this house. Mm-hmm. It's frightening.
It is frightening. Mm-hmm.
But, there's an awful... Are there any figures? I mean, I know it's impossible. Are there any figures about how many people are actually involved in this trade?
Well, I don't have figures, but I know that it's what we've seen through our long-term operations and investigations is that gangs are getting into it because they see it as more of that it's a moneymaker for them. They see it as kind of under the radar. They think people don't really care. They have the opportunity to make some money, and they're not standing on the street corner dodging bullets. And so we've seen our gangs here in Chicago get involved in the trafficking, and gangs who would...
this sounds fairly new, actually.
Right. Gangs who would normally be fighting each other over turf wars for drugs are working together kind of like business partners. The operation we had, a little girl lost on the west side, these gangs were trading girls and selling girls and, working almost like business partners as opposed to fighting the way they would be doing on the drug trade. So it's a problem. It's a problem that, we have to be aware of. And quite frankly, all our young girls are vulnerable because of the use of the internet, and people, these predators, they're on there. They see, they start conversations, chats with these young girls, and pick up on the girls who might be most vulnerable. Someone who's claiming she can't get along with her parents and she wants to run away from home, and then next thing somebody's friending her, meeting her out in a parking lot someplace, and the next.
So a lot of this is very involuntary on the girls' parts, people, you should understand that before you do any of these things.
Right. They know who to target. They know which girls might be more vulnerable than others. It's sad.
But basically, these people, that means they're also guilty of kidnapping, human trafficking. Mm-hmm. I mean, they ought to be going to jail for a very long time. Mm-hmm. Not to mention, these girls are literally being raped.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So,
Right. And
you know,
children, you know.
it's, no, you know, after looking at those sites, it seems to me that there are, got to be thousands and thousands of people involved in this. I'm sorry to hear about the gangs getting involved, because I thought they were just, like pretty much off to their merriness with the drugs, and of course, the shooting and all the rest of it.
Right.
Let's talk about guns.
Yeah. Well, we've seen so much lately, and with the murder of this 9-year-old little boy just the other day, how it's disheartening. It's outrageous, and me as a mother, I mean, these are babies that we're losing each and every day. I've said this before, and and that is, I think we need to strengthen our gun laws here in Illinois. I've tried for the last 4 years down in Springfield. It hasn't gone anywhere, but I think it's important, because what we've seen, and we're talking about people who are out on the street with an illegal gun, who don't have the proper, FOID or concealed carry. It's the illegal guns. The gang members, that's who's using the illegal guns. And those are the people who are shooting up the streets. So we're talking about, when somebody gets caught with a gun here in Illinois, an offense, the sentence for the first time is it's a year. It's a year on a UUW, which is unlawful use of a weapon. Well, a year doesn't mean a year. A year means 3 months, maybe 4 at the most. So these guys are going in and coming back out. And what we've seen, there's a recent study, was that 63% of gun offenders reoffend within a year. 63% reoffend in a year. And not necessarily just on a straight possession of a gun case. We're seeing them come back on murders, on armed robberies, on aggravated discharge, attempt murders. We're seeing them come back into the system with violent crimes. So again, I'll keep trying till we raise that minimum so there's a deterrent effect. So they'll 3 months to some of these guys, it's not a big deal.
No. Okay, that's this minimum, but is there a maximum attached? Can the judges actually opt to send them in for more than that year that becomes 3 months?
They could, but the reality is what we're seeing is it's a year.
It's like the process: get them in, get them out, haul them out, and
right.
forget about the human touch or what else is needed. System.
Right, and we've seen, unfortunately, the increase. But every urban area, I was invited to sit on a committee and attended a meeting with the major city chiefs of police in Washington, D.C. back in August. And it was eye-opening to hear other large urban areas, jurisdictions, Houston, Philadelphia, D.C., Milwaukee, talk about the increase in shootings, because it's not just here, unfortunately. It's not. It's happening in other large urban areas. So, we have a problem, and I think we have to realize that. I mean, how many more 9-year-old children, how many more babies are going to be killed on our streets?
Even though, thank God, in my particular police beat that I chair, we only had one self-inflicted gunshot wound over the last month. But you can go 1.5 miles, 2 miles away from here, and people are getting boom. Unbelievable.
Right. So clearly it's an issue, and clearly we have to stay on top of it. And, I'm open. I've worked with the superintendent and his violence reduction strategies. And in some areas it's worked, in some areas it hasn't. So, but we continue to look for new ideas.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, one of the things I mentioned on an earlier show, and I don't want to represent your views, but I always thought that if you put some kind of serial number on bullets, and they would be able to be traced. You're not stopping anybody from buying a gun that way, but the fact is you can actually find out if somebody is the culprit. I mean, you
have a really good point, because, on a national level, there should be some changes in the laws, because I think right now it's easier to trace a car back to its original owner than it is a gun. With the VIN number on every car.
Right.
I could probably find out what car you owned back in 1995.
Probably.
So, yeah, we have to be cognizant of that.
So you, of course, are running for re-election.
I am running for re-election.
And I assume you've got a website.
I do have a website.
And do you know what it is offhand, or Sally?
Right. It's simple.
AnitaAlvarez.com. You could also find pages for her on Facebook, probably other social media. Check her out. She's a frequent guest on the show. Best Marty Levinson of all time. We'll be talking to you soon again, hopefully, during the campaign. And thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, Avi. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Be well.